another episode of Going All In, Get the Edge You Need to Succeed. My name is Dr. Erin McKinley, and today I have another awesome spotlight session with Carleton Rivers from the Masters of Science in Nutrition Sciences Clinical Track Dietetic Internship Program at the University of Alabama in Birmingham, based in Birmingham, Alabama. Welcome, Carleton.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. McKinley, and your students. Thank you for inviting me. I'm looking forward to getting to talk about our program.
Yeah, so before you dive into a little bit of information about the program, tell us a little bit about you, like where you did your undergrad, where you did your internship, and how you landed as the director at UAB.
Yes, so I did my undergraduate studies at Samford University in Birmingham, Alabama, and then I went on to do my dietetic internship and my master's at UAB, at University of Alabama at Birmingham. So I'm very familiar with the program. And after I graduated from that program, I started working with the UAB Lakeshore Research Collaborative. So I've been at UAB ever since I started my graduate course there, coursework there. And so I got to work with a number of different researchers. I was a dietitian on many different studies that they had in that program. And so I did that for about 2 or 3 years. And then this position came available to become program director. And it was a long process determining whether or not I would apply, but it was definitely of interest to me. I had worked as program coordinator on some of the research studies that I was the dietitian on. And I knew that I love the administrative side of things, but I also did a lot of teaching in the community, and I love teaching. And so I just felt like being a program director, being a faculty member would be a great fit. And so, of course, I got the job, and that was in 2016. I started working as program director for this program, and it's been really special because I have been in the shoes of my students. I know what it's like to go through this program. It has slightly changed since 2015. Now it's the 1-year track. It only takes 1 year to go through the program, whereas when I went through it, it took 2 years. But I worked with the same, very similar preceptors that many of our interns work with now. So it's just a delight to be able to do this role, be in this role every day. And I just love working with the interns. That's probably my favorite part of this position.
Awesome. All right. So tell us a little bit about the program with your slides this evening.
Yes. Well, first of all, I do have a virtual open house that I'll be hosting this Friday. So if you need a little bit more information about our program after viewing this, then join us for our virtual open house. If you can't make it to the live session, you can go ahead and just email me and I will send you the recording. But I'll be going in depth about the program, and we'll also have some of our faculty members joining us so that you get to know about some of the courses and then just the other instructors you'll be working with during the program year. But just the basics of our program, it's a 1-year combined dietetic internship and master's degree program. You can't do these two programs separately. It is very coordinated. They are combined. And the way that the coursework is designed and the way that the supervised practice rotations progress, it's very integrated. So we can't separate them. But it is 1 year, starts every fall. And the interns graduate every summer in August. All of our coursework is online. The program is not necessarily a distance program. We have 4 separate cities where our interns are located, and I'll go over that in just a moment. But all of our coursework is online. So luckily, during this transition of what everyone is having to go through with COVID, we were set up very well for this. As far as the academic side, our didactic coursework was concerned. Just like any of the other dietetic internships, our students have to complete 1,200 hours of supervised practice. We do have an emphasis of medical nutrition therapy, and you can see that within our curriculum, but also within the amount of clinical rotations that our students do. So the majority of rotations that our interns attend are in some type of clinical setting, whether that's outpatient or inpatient. And then upon graduation, our graduates can then go on and sit for the RD exam, and they also receive a Master of Science degree. So here are the 4 program cities where our interns can be placed. Birmingham is our largest city spot. So we have 16 intern spots in Birmingham, 4 in Mobile, which is the most southern part of Alabama. Montgomery, we have 3 spots in Montgomery and then 2 in Huntsville. Now, we do have a separate application form. It's our supplemental application form, and that's where the students or the prospective students actually rank where they want to go. And so I always try my best to place the interns in their top choice because I want them to go where they want to go. But sometimes that's not always feasible. And so what I do is after match day, I communicate with the students. If we're not able to put them in their city of choice, I communicate with them about which other city they would like to go and live in. Because sometimes the way you've ranked the cities, sometimes that changes as the months go by. And so I always like to check with the interns after match day just to make sure that that's where they want to go. Now, as far as the program getting started, we're in a very different season. And so we actually don't have an academic calendar yet for fall 2021. But we usually start the interns off with an orientation 1 week before the fall semester begins. And so that's usually towards the end of August. This year, we did a completely online orientation. However, in the past, we've done 2 or 3 days of in-person orientation where everyone comes to Birmingham on the UAB campus. And then after those few days, then they go back to their assigned program city and complete the rest of the orientation and other modules on our online system. But who knows what fall 2021 is going to bring. So we do have that flexibility going forward. And then courses begin. So I really like to let that first week, let that be a time for the students to get adjusted to their graduate courses, because it can be a big transition between undergraduate and graduate coursework. And in the past, it was a big transition to online learning. But I think these days, students are quite acclimated to the online setting. And so that's not a big hurdle anymore. And then the next week is usually when we start alternative practice activities, or we begin rotations. Now, this year we tried something different just because of having difficulty scheduling students in rotations. They did 3 weeks of alternative practice activities. So these were online modules that had live classes that they would attend, and we'd talk through things. They'd have registered dietitians come and talk through content with them. So we tried that out this year. I don't think we're going to do a full 3 weeks next year. I like how students get into rotations a little bit earlier. And so hopefully we can do that and students can start out in rotations a little bit sooner in the fall semester. But I do like to provide a little bit of time to kind of ease into the new program, because many of these students are moving to a new city and there's just a lot to get adjusted to. Now, this is a kind of week at a glance. So the students are in their rotations typically Tuesday through Friday. And these are 8-hour rotations. So we're aiming for a total of 32 hours per week. Mondays are really dedicated for majority of their coursework. They may have live class sessions. Sometimes I bring in guest lecturers. We had yesterday we had Tammy Beasley, who is really an expert in eating disorders. She came and had quite a long, really wonderful session with our students and did a number of case studies. And it was just a really great opportunity for our interns. And so I like to do something like that at least once every year. The students do case study presentations. That's always on a Monday. And then every semester I meet with the interns one-on-one And we use that really to talk about their progress in the program, talk about any issues or any concerns they have. And then we work on goal setting for them. So that's a big part of our program. I like the interns to be very aware of their growth in the program, and because it can be very easy to get consumed with coursework and rotations and just kind of checking the box of getting stuff done. And I really want them to slow down, reflect, and focus on having intentional growth. So we have one-on-one advisor meetings, and that is usually on a Monday as well. Okay, here is our curriculum. So as you'll see, it's broken up into the 3 semesters. And what may be different in our program compared to other programs is we do not have electives. And so when our curriculum was revised and implemented in 2015, it was really simplified to include specific things that our group and our advisory committee believed that the future dietitians that we're training needed to know. And so you'll see those areas reflected in our coursework. Of course, it's a graduate program, so it is quite heavy in research. So our students will start off with statistics and then move through the semesters doing applied research. And then they'll kind of pull it all together for the final courses. Our semesters build on each other. And so we're not so much focused on, it's hard for undergraduate students many times in graduate programs to not be focused on getting that A. You want that A. We as instructors in a graduate program are really focused on, are you getting the information? Because in our curriculum, you're going to have to use what you've learned in the semester before and apply it in the next semester. So we take a little bit of a very conscious approach in making sure that no student gets left behind from semester to semester. You'll see that we have principles and practice of nutrition support. So medical nutrition therapy is built into many of our semesters, advanced medical nutrition in the spring. And then in the summer, the students will take more of a variety of courses with advanced food systems and resource management. So that's really building off of any of your food service courses that you've taken in undergrad, and really focusing on the systems approach and the managerial approach to the food service practice area. And then nutritional biochemistry, which is one of my favorites because I just find it fascinating, and most of our students do as well. And so they gain a lot of information in that semester. Communications and nutrition is taught by Dr. Beth Kitchen, and she is an expert in working with the media. She has a regular weekly spot at our local Fox News station. And so the students learn how to interact with the media, how to blog, how to disseminate research findings in an accurate way to the people in the community, to the public. And so it's just a wonderful class for the students to kind of wrap up the year. Now you'll see the internship practicum is in each semester, and those are your rotations. And so you'll be doing internship rotations along with your graduate coursework each semester. One other thing that I want to point out, in spring semester, you'll see at the very bottom of this table is NTR 501. So this is a course that we provide for the students, and it's a review course. So we've used Breeding and Associates in the past. This year we're using Gene Inman, and this year it's virtual. In the past we've brought everyone on campus, but we're doing it virtual this year. And so it's a 0 credit hour course, but it's attached to a $550 fee. So within that fee, they get can either be a 2 or 3 day review course for the RD exam. And we're also including a 1-year subscription to Eat Right Prep's online practice exam through the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. And so we've actually incorporated the Eat Right Prep system into our curriculum. So the students throughout summer, starting off in spring and definitely throughout summer, they're starting to do tests and assessing where they are in preparation for the RD exam. And so all of that's wrapped up in that one fee. We made that transition not only to just ensure that pass rates stay strong, But also I was finding that there were many students on financial aid in our program that when they got out of the program, they couldn't pay for $300+ review course. And so having it be within the curriculum makes sure that everyone gets the same chance and everyone gets to take a strong course in preparation for the RD exam. So this is just general information about our supervised practice rotations. We have a dietetics practice coordinator who schedules all the rotations. So it doesn't matter which city you're in, you don't have to schedule them yourself. So again, we're not really a distance program. Rotations do progress throughout the year. So you typically won't start in an inpatient hospital rotation because we want you to kind of ease into the program. And so your rotations will build over time. Rotation length can be either 1 week, which is really just 4 days, or they can be as long as 6 weeks long. And so it just depends on the practice area and who you're working with and how long we feel like you need to be in that area to kind of get a feel for what's being done. Of course, your inpatient clinical rotations are going to be your longest rotations in our program. Our internship is completed with a 5-week interns choice rotation. And so the interns in April make a decision of where they want to spend this final rotation. And it can be somewhere they've already been in the program, or it can be somewhere else. If they want to go home because they know that they're moving back to a different city and they have some leads there, we like to facilitate that for them because we know that if you have time to do an internship at a site that is looking to hire, that they would really consider you as a strong candidate because they'd be able to see how you perform. So we like to work with the interns on getting those set up. So typically we have 37 total weeks of rotations for fall, spring, and summer altogether. And this is just a little breakdown of the different categories of the rotation. So you can see kind of how long you spend in each area. So you'll see there's a wide variety of rotations, but again, we do have an emphasis on medical nutrition therapy. And so you're going to spend a lot of time in the clinical setting. Here is a breakdown of our program cost. Now, what I want you all to keep in mind is these are fees and tuition and fees for the 2019-2020 program year. Every summer, usually in August, the Board of Trustees releases new tuition rates and any increased fees. So keep in mind, this is for this year. It may increase a little bit. But you'll see that there are resident and non-resident tuition expenses, and that's only applied to NTR 589. Excuse me, I need to take a drink. And so that makes up 24 out of the 48 credit hours that our interns will register for. The other 24 credit hours are online courses. And so there's a flat fee per credit hour, which you see here on your slide. So doesn't matter which state you're in, where you're from, the online courses will all be charged the same fee, despite where you're located. There is an international student fee that increased this year. So if you're an international student, the best thing to do is just to reach out to me and we can set up a time to talk about things to consider because they are a little bit different for our program if you are an international student. The fees that are included are NTR 501, which I talked about briefly already. The students will do a background check and drug screen prior to coming into the program. And then at the end of the program, they'll apply for their degree. And so they'll pay a graduation fee. So at the bottom of this table, you have an estimate of what the total cost of tuition and fees would look like if you're a resident of Alabama or a non-resident. And then, of course, there are some variable costs like parking, living, things like that. So you would have additional expenses. We do, students can apply to financial aid, and there are 2 loans that they can potentially apply for and get their entire program costs covered. We do have a payment plan at UAB that's called the Blazer Flex Plan. So you have 3 payment installments within a semester. We offer scholarships at the university level as well as the school and department level. We do have specific scholarships for our interns. Most of these scholarships are awarded in the spring semester of which the student is enrolled. So you would apply for it. If you're in our program, you would apply in the fall and then receive it in the spring. We do have a stipend set up for one of our rotations, and that's one that we've had a contract with, and so it's been a long-standing stipend with UAB Hospital. So we don't typically have stipends, but for the students that are in Birmingham and the ones that rotate at UAB Hospital, they can potentially receive a stipend if they choose to go there for their final 5-week rotation. Okay, on this slide, I've just included our admission requirements rather. One thing that I want to point out is we are not requiring the GRE this application season. So usually we do have a GRE requirement, but we are not requiring it. If you take the GRE and feel like your score is strong and want to include that on your application, you can definitely do that. It just won't be, it'll be kind of added bonus to your application. It won't be considered in your main the main decision making, but there's a lot of things that go into how we rank students and how we decide to place students. The one thing I do want to say is that you do need to have a cumulative GPA of 3.0 for you to be eligible for our program. And then I'll just briefly go through the application process, which is very similar for every program, but it's maybe slightly different for ours with the graduate program. So I just want to address it really quickly. So we do use DICUS. We also have a supplemental application form, which you can access the link to that form on our website. And all of that's due on February 15th. I do conduct interviews, and it's usually between March and April. Many times it leads all the way up until the final date of D&D Digital, when you can kind of move around your rankings of programs, just because there can be a lot of people that I want to speak with. Usually I like to talk to everyone that we want to consider for the program, which can be around 40 prospective students. So usually if I run out of time, and I have run out of time in the past where we just can't fit everyone into the schedule, I'll contact the student and let them know that we are we're interested in them. Can't tell you that we're ranking you, but we're interested in you, and we just weren't able to find time to schedule an interview. But again, I sometimes all the way up until beginning of April, I'm still emailing students to schedule an interview. So I know it gets a little, you get a little antsy waiting on emails about interviews, but I do try to get those out as quickly as I can. But it's just it's over Zoom, virtual interview, 30 minutes. It's usually just with me, and we just chat. And it's just a way for me to get to know you outside of your application. And then we have the match day. And you find out where you're going, you accept positions. Luckily, this year, they've moved the time to an earlier time slot on Sunday for y'all to find out. I think y'all are a very lucky class to get to find out where you get matched earlier that Sunday. I still remember my Sunday waiting until 6:00 at night to find out, which was just so tedious. So luckily, y'all get to find out early. And then once you're matched to our program, that's when you apply to the graduate program. So it may be different for other MSDI programs, to make sure that you pay attention to that. But for ours, first you do DICUS, and if you're matched, you then go on and apply to our graduate program. And this is a very basic application because y'all have gone through the ringer with DICUS. So that's where I'm going to stop and just open it up for questions. So Dr. McKinley, if you have any questions, or students, if y'all have any questions for me, feel free to unmute or type in the chat box.
Well, actually, they have to wait 18 more hours. They find out on Monday this year.
Oh, it's on Monday. It's not on Sunday. Oh, I missed that. I thought they got
Monday at 11 a.m. So they have to wait 18 more excruciating hours.
Oh, that's terrible. That's terrible.
Right in the middle of my class. So if you're taking class with me this year, we're going to have a pause in the middle of class to celebrate.
That's terrible. I don't know why in my mind I was thinking it was Sunday. Maybe it was just hopeful thinking.
I think that Sunday's Easter. I think that's the reason why. I'm not 100%
is
sure.
It? Well, that makes sense.
Well, thanks for that brief overview of the program. And I know I'm a little biased because I am a product of the state of Alabama's wonderful dietetics programs and internships. And I am going to give a shout out to the preceptors and dietitians in Alabama. They really are some of the best. Like you mentioned, Tammy and Beth. And I think those two, they are the best in what they do than anyone I've ever seen. So if you haven't seen a Beth Kitchen interview, just look on Facebook. You can follow her. She posts all her news stuff. Love her. Actually, when I was an intern, I took one of her osteoporosis prevention classes over at Kirkland Clinic. Yeah. That was my exposure to her. So they're really awesome.
She's still there.
I'm a little biased on that. So just a few questions before I jump into the questions that I ask all the programs. Just a few questions about the program. So what is the real big difference in the facilities between the different cities in Alabama? What is a student really going to experience that's different in Mobile as opposed to Huntsville or Montgomery?
Yes. Yeah, that's a great question. So it really comes down to the differences in communities. So Birmingham is, if you've never been to Birmingham, it's a pretty, it's one of our bigger cities in Alabama. I won't say it's really a big city because compared to many other cities, it's not a big city, but compared to our other cities in Birmingham, it is our largest. And so you're going to have a greater variety of patients. We have larger facilities. So many of the interns, not all of them, but many of them rotate at UAB Hospital, where there's a large trauma unit, trauma and burn. There's a lot of different centers. I mean, UAB is huge. And so the students get to experience that. And they go to other hospitals as well. We have many other hospitals, of course, in the area. But when you look at the other facilities in the other cities, it really comes down to the types of patients that they see. So some of the other cities in Montgomery or, even Huntsville, there's more rural areas and they see patients, a lot of patients that have similar conditions, heart disease, diabetes, things like that. So, of course, we pay close attention to make sure our interns have comparable experiences across the program cities. But I would say the biggest difference is really just the population groups that the patients, or rather that the interns get to experience. And I think it's wonderful that many of our students come to these brand new cities that they've never lived in before, and they really get just into the thick of what it's like to be in practice in that area. And I really encourage them to get out into their community. They have to do a certain number of community service hours each year for the program year. And I want them to get to know the community. I want them to get to know the people around that area. And so although they are slightly different from city to city, we do pay close attention to making sure that they have comparable experiences in their rotations.
All right, perfect. And you mentioned the alternative practice hours that y'all did. What kind of topics do you cover in that?
Yeah, so many of these are new modules that we've created post-COVID, but some of the ones that we have been working on are motivational interviewing. And that's probably one of my favorite ones because the students, they role play as the dietitian and then as the patient. So they get two separate case studies and they record themselves on Zoom working with their partner. And then they assess based off of a specific rubric for motivational interviewing. And it's just so wonderful to get to see them and get to see where their strengths lie. So that's a new one that we've implemented this year that I really love. We focus on diabetes in one of them, where they work with a case study, and then we have a live class day, virtual, of course, where we get together and they speak to one of the dietitians in our area, who he has type 1 diabetes. And so he's speaking from not only a dietitian point of view, but also someone with diabetes. And so the students get to work through that case study with them. And it's just a wonderful time to just have their questions answered and get to see things in kind of a real life setting. I'm going to be rolling out a new one come really in a few weeks, because our students aren't coming back after Thanksgiving until January. And so we felt like it would be safer for our interns not to go back to their in-person rotations right after Thanksgiving, because I want them to go and be with their family and not have to worry about going back into the hospital and putting patients at risk. So they're going to do alternative practice after Thanksgiving. And one of the ones that we're going to do is a nutrition-focused physical exam module, where they're actually going to do an assessment on themselves. They're going to do it on people that are maybe in their home or their friends. And so I'm really looking forward to that one. But we have a lot planned as far as alternative practice, but those are probably my favorite ones that we've rolled out so far.
So what other COVID changes have you had to do? Did you have limitations on facilities? Are they doing any virtual stuff with preceptors?
Yes, we have started doing virtual rotations. Of course, last year, when students were pulled out of the internship in the spring and didn't start back until June. And so we did a lot of virtual rotations around that time. Now there's just a handful of sites that do full virtual. There are some where the students will come in some days and then do virtual practice the other days. But we have had to make a lot of changes, because there's still many sites that will not allow our interns to come in. And a lot of them are waiting until 2021 to make that decision. And so we have had to move a lot of things around. Luckily, we've also been able to gain new rotations during this time, because people know that we're in dire need. And so we've had a lot of people reach out to us. And it's been fun outside of the terror of it all, to really just get creative and see where we can grow this program. And I think a lot of the things that we have started implementing this past year, we're going to carry forward, because we see that they're working really well and the students are gaining some really great experiences from them.
All right. Let's talk about the interns a little. That schedule was a little intense.
Yes.
Are your interns able to have a part-time job, or do you not recommend that?
We don't recommend it, but there's some of our interns are, I would say, are high functioning interns, and they can handle a part-time job. It's still not that many hours per week. But we have noticed, I discourage working outside the program, because we've noticed students that do work, they really struggle to keep up with their grades and to stay focused in their rotation. So it's one of those things where, I like to tell students, you have to find the program that works for you. Not every program is going to fit you. Ours is an accelerated program. We ask a lot of our interns in 1 year, but it's just 1 year. And our students, they learn so much through that 1 year. And I think many times when you're in a program that really pushes you, you grow that much more. And, but I recognize that in a program like ours, students sometimes need a little bit more guidance, more mentorship. And so myself, I provide that, as well as our faculty members. We really encourage the students to come to us. Let's talk. Let's schedule a Zoom meeting these days. And let's really connect, so that you're not going this alone. We really provide a lot of support for our students. And it's just so cool to see how much they grow between fall and summer semester. I mean, it's extraordinary, and really a pleasure to be able to see that and be a part of that.
So you provide the opportunity for them to do the exam review. Has that had a positive effect on your pass rate for the program?
So that's been tricky to measure. We've had our pass rate for 2019. We had a number of students that had test anxiety. And that class only had the review course. They didn't have the Eat Right Prep. We implemented that this past year. But our pass rate went down to about 70% for 2019. And it's really those students that struggled just taking tests. Now I will say our 1 year pass rate's 100%, and it stayed at 100%. So within 1 year of their first attempt, our interns or graduates rather pass. This year for 2020 is going to be the first year where we see the Eat Right Prep, how that's impacting the program. And we decided to implement that because I've spoken to a lot of programs where they've been saying that's the difference. That's the difference maker. Because it's a very strong online platform. And so already our students graduated the end of August, and already 11 out of the 25 have passed, have messaged me that they've passed. So I'm hopeful that the addition of the Eat Right Prep is really going to help those that do have test anxiety, because we start those practice exams in the program. And so they get a good amount of time working on that. And I think one of the big contributors to anxiety in taking the RD exam is the amount of questions, is the way that the questions are asked, because it is tricky. It's not an easy exam. And I think the more you can expose people to what it's like to take the exam, the more comfortable they're going to be in the testing session. So I'm hopeful that our pass rate will go back up. So I can't say that what we have implemented right now is helping, but I hope that it will help students going forward. But it's the exam right now is a tough exam, and I mean the national pass rate is 70% for this exam, so it's tough.
And I can relate with the anxiety and being I took mine at one of those testing centers in Hoover. It was a little teeny tiny room, and there was like 5 of us, and there were truck drivers taking like advanced tests for their truck driving stuff. And it was just like, I was like, hi, I'm just here to take the RT exam. I was like, this isn't nerve wracking at all.
Yeah. So
I understand that completely, but it'd be nice to see how that the new Eat Right,
yes, I'm looking forward.
That system is working for everybody. It looks like it's going to be pretty good though. So last question about the interns. Since it's more clinically focused as an internship, do you find that a majority of the interns end up seamlessly going into clinical? And do they tend to maybe stay in the area that they maybe did their internship?
Yes, I do see majority of our graduates go into the clinical setting first, whether that's inpatient or outpatient. Many of our interns do go into the facilities where they've rotated. As I said earlier, that's really the best chance that you have as an intern coming, or rather a graduate coming straight out of your internship, because you don't have that year of work experience that the applications always ask for. They know how you perform. So we see a lot of that our graduates get positions in the hospitals or in the clinics where they've rotated. We do have a variety of areas where our students go into work. So I don't think our program in any way restricts where you end up. We have specialty rotations like sports nutrition, specialty community rotations, where they're working with populations with HIV in different settings. And one of the questions on our supplemental application form is asking the applicant, what areas are you interested in? And we like to take those into consideration after match day when we know who's coming and we haven't really scheduled the rotations yet. We like to look through that to see, okay, what is everyone's interest? Where, and we kind of use that as much as we can to place interns in specific rotations, because again, this is the students' program. And we want them to get out of it what they want and what is their interest. But we do see a good amount of students go into clinicals right out of the program.
All right. Well, I'm going to move into the questions that I ask all of the directors that are on the podcast. And these are mostly related to applying and what you're looking for in applicants. And these questions were put together with the help of the LSU students with what they want to know the most. So the first question is there a particular thing that you just love to see when you're reading a personal statement?
Yes. I like to see the drive of the student to become a registered dietitian. I like to see the passion and the love that they have for this field, because I think for someone pursuing not only an internship, but a graduate program, they need that drive to get through it because it's not easy. And so I really look for what drives them, what, is that fire in them that gives them the vision to go and become a dietitian. That's what I'm really looking for. Outside of that, a well-structured personal statement. So I tell all students that I talk to, I say, look over your DICUS application multiple times. Get other people to look over it, because when we see errors in applications, those are big red flags, because students have a long time to develop these applications and get them set up. And so you don't want yours to appear as though it's just kind of thrown together, because that will speak volumes of you and your preparation.
Well, I'm going to skip a question. You mentioned red flags. One of my questions is about red flags. So besides maybe some errors on an application, what are some other red flags that you kind of maybe look for or notice where you're kind of saying this might not be a good fit?
Yeah, so that's really where the recommendation letters come in. We take those very seriously. I think that students need to be very careful in who they ask, very strategic in who they ask to write their recommendation letters. And I recommend that when a student first think about, what do I want this person to share about me? What kind of picture do I want them to paint? And then after you decide who you're going to ask and you ask them and they accept, then you let them know, this is what I'm really hoping that you can speak to. This is why I selected you as a reference. And not that they have to talk about that, but it's a great way to kind of guide them, because Dr. McKinley, you probably, as someone who writes a lot of recommendation letters, it helps to have a little guidance. And what are you looking for us to say? We know you, but we don't want to have write the same letter for you as we are for your fellow student, classmate. So don't be afraid to just share kind of what you're hoping that people will, your reference will speak to in that recommendation letter. But those can be very insightful, not only what the person says, but who the applicant chooses to have write their recommendation letter. So choosing a friend that you've worked with probably isn't the best choice of a reference. You want it to be a really credible reference that doesn't have anything, kind of doesn't have another dog in the fight, isn't also your best friend that wants to see you get in this program, but really can speak honestly to your skills and your performance. So definitely the recommendation letters are going to be a big kind of key to looking for those red flags. Yeah.
All right. So my next question is a true or false question. And it's true or false, an applicant's resume should be one page and one page only. And either way, why?
That's a good one. I would say, that's a tough one. For me, I would say false. And I say that now, I don't now when it comes to for someone applying to a position, sometimes, I usually recommend you need to taper it down to one page. But I think that because we're looking back at so many years of the student in their academics and what they've done, I don't want to restrict them to one page, because I don't think it should be a novel. I wouldn't get more than 2 pages. That's a little extreme. But I get very confused when I go through an application and there's either stuff on the application that's not in the resume or things in the resume that's not on the application. And to be honest, when I look at the resume, I'm really looking at it to see how did they structure it? What did they include? Because I feel like that speaks to what they see as important. Because honestly, outside of that, I don't see why we need a resume in the application, because we ask a lot of the same questions that covers the same content. So I'm kind of looking at the resume for different things. So I don't mind if it's longer than a page, but I would say no more than 2 pages.
All right. So what is one area of the program that you're actively working on trying to make even better for the interns?
So there's a new thing came. There's many areas, but one that I'm really focused on right now has to do with the environment we're living in currently because of COVID, because of the pandemic. I learned about this in FNCE a couple weeks ago, but the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics has a Council of Future Practice, and they're pretty much looking at what are dietitians needing to know about in the future. What are they going to have to deal with? What's going to be important? And this year they came out with this concept, and they didn't create it. I believe it's been used in the past, but it's called VUCA, VUCA. And I actually have a little slide on it, which I can share really briefly, just so you can see what I'm talking about. But it's talking about navigating this world that we live in that's pretty much crazy. It's volatile, it's uncertain, it's complex, it's ambiguous. And as dietitians, what do we need to have to be able to function properly and be efficient and effective in this type of world? And so they highlighted 4 main areas, which you can see on the screen, of what dietitians and diet techs need to have to thrive in a VUCA world. And it's being agile, courageous, trusted, and being a systems thinker. And these are things that we really do already incorporate to some extent within the program. But it's something that going forward, I'm looking to see where can we build this in more, in the curriculum, in our internship, in my mentoring and advising students. How can I build this in even more to prepare our interns for this new world that we're living in? And so if you haven't heard of this or seen this, I would say go ahead and go onto the Eat Right website and search this, because I think it's fascinating. I think it points to exactly what we're dealing with right now. And I think you all as students can probably relate to the growth and just kind of the awareness of so many other things that you've had to change and to go through over this past year. So this is really one big area that now I'm focusing on, just to make sure our students, not only, as a program director, as an internship director, I'm very focused on competencies, making sure that our students are competent in all the things that are issued by our accrediting body. And that will never stop. I will always continue to work on improving those. But I think outside of that, there's so many other skills and other things that we need to consider, like these four areas that you see on the screen, to make sure that our graduates are successful and can thrive in our future world. So I really think that this is something that not only dietitians need to pay attention to, but really any educator that's working with students, because, we are training the future dietitians in the future profession. So this is something that I've really put on kind of the forefront of my thinking as far as making changes to the program.
That's awesome. I definitely need to look into that for myself as well. All right, I'm going to ask one more question. It's a two-parter, and then we'll open it up to the students that we have with us. So okay. The first part is, what would be the 3 best adjectives or descriptors to describe your program?
Oh, okay. Is it bad? The first word that comes to mind is intense. It's an intense program. Professional. We focus so much on professionalism and training our interns so that they're not surprised when they get into their career and into the profession. And the other one is teamwork. We build in so much teamwork into our program. In orientation, I assign the students into program teams. There are 5 interns in each team, and they stay in those teams throughout the whole program year. And they do teamwork in most of their courses, so they can really develop those teamwork skills. And our graduates, they leave the program as really strong members of teams. They understand what it means to be in a team and to work together. And so I think those would be the 3 adjectives or descriptors for our program.
All right. The second part's very similar. It would be 3 adjectives or descriptors to describe your ideal applicant.
Yes. Open-minded. It's very important that our students remain open-minded, because they're going to go through many different experiences, and they have to trust those experiences and be open to that. Determined, again, I had mentioned having a drive. They need to have that drive and know what their goal is, because it's easy to get distracted in a program like this. Caring. All I can think of is just being empathetic, and I think that's any future dietitian. It's so important to know why you're doing this, why you're wanting to be in this profession. Most of the time you're going to be working with people. And so it's so important to have an empathetic, caring approach to developing relationships and working with all the various people that you're going to come into contact with in the internship.
All right, perfect. Well, I'm going to open the floor to the students that we have with us this evening. If they have any questions they would like to ask live.
I sent all my questions in before, so that was all I had.
Oh, I can ask the question for you that I didn't ask. Gianna sent me a question I forgot to ask. So when you look at the application materials,
yes,
do you have a certain order of importance that you're looking at first, second? What are you looking at to really rank the students?
Yes. So the initial review of applications, we use a point system to evaluate each of our prospective students. So of course, because it's a graduate program, GPA is up at the top of that. So we're really looking at your cumulative GPA, but then also your dietetics GPA, so your major. Science GPA falls below that, because many times people can struggle in organic chemistry, and we don't like to hold that against you. So we don't put as much weight on the science GPA. Personal statement would come next as far as weighting of the points. And then the recommendation letters. In the past, we've put weight on the experiences that the students have received that are nutrition related outside of their didactic program. But this year it's going to be different. I'm not going to include that because of COVID, and it's just that much harder to go out and find those experiences, especially for seniors that are looking for those experiences in their final year, even juniors, because it started last year. So won't be really looking at that too much. Again, just like with the GRE score, it's just going to be kind of like a bonus. And then after that, when we do interviews, that is also included into kind of how we determine rankings, and then any other interactions that we have with the students.
All right. Do we have any additional questions? All right. So since we are all out of questions, Carleton, one last message, one last take home for potential applicants this year for next year.
Yes. Well, I would just like to encourage you all. I think you're living in a time where there's so many opportunities that are available to you. I know that when I was applying for internships, and probably Dr. McKinley can relate, there were not as many opportunities out there, not as many internship programs. And so I think y'all have a really great opportunity to get into a program. It may not be your top choice, but you have a great opportunity to become a dietitian early on. I would say that be very careful where you apply. Take it into consideration, where you want to live in the future, what that program has to offer. Get to know that program because, that's where you're going to be living for the next year or two. But it's so many exciting things ahead of y'all. I loved my year in my internship. It's probably one of the reasons why I'm an internship director now, because it was just such an exciting year getting to see all the different areas and working with so many different people. So I'm excited for you all. I think you'll have so many wonderful things ahead of you. So I know it's stressful, but let yourself feel that excitement and get excited about the future.
All right. And thank you so much again for joining us this evening. And for those at home that are watching this, if you want more information on the DI program at UAB or to get in touch with Carleton, I've provided you a link to their program in the description box below this video. And as always, don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you never miss an episode with another dietetic internship. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.